Hello, my name's Tom and welcome to part 5 of my 31 horror film countdown to Halloween. So, on the 15th of October, I watched The Evil Within, which was a pretty intense, messed up, twisted, strange, bizarro film. I looked it up after I watched it and I found out that the director was high on meth for most of the production. Apparently he spent years editing it in isolation, and overall it took 5 years to make this film, and he died before it got released. Grotesque, weird stuff, corpses becoming puppets, all sorts of mad stuff. I've seen some people online saying it's a really bad film, like laughably bad. When I watched it, I have to say I thought it was one of the best films I've seen this year. Very, very good film. I think it's the most disturbing film I've watched in a long time, and it really conjures up a nightmare. It is about someone with special needs committing murders, so in that respect it might be a bit impolitically correct, perhaps. The idea is before the Hereditary he was a very well-spoken sort of genius. That's part of him is still in his mind, lurking, trying to get to the surface. And it comes through as this sort of manifests itself as this evil sort of psychopath. Number 16, Frightmare. Quite a campy, quite fun film. It's a bit of a horror comedy in some ways, or at least it's quite daft. Basically, there's an old, very prestigious actor who is a horror actor, modelled on Christopher Lee quite clearly. And when they show footage of him when he was young, they just show footage of Christopher Lee, which I found quite funny. He has like a heart attack, and quite soon in the film he dies. And these kids, for some reason, like these teenagers, go to the mausoleum and steal his body, take it home and play with it, and I have no idea why. That's the most unbelievable part of the whole film, and this is a film about the dead coming back to life, so that's saying something. And yeah, obviously, well, I've jumped the gun there. Basically, he comes back from the dead, yes, and he's this old guy with a beard, sort of goatee, and a Dracula cape, and he does all this stuff like mind control and makes people burst into flames and things like that. And it's a fun film. Number 17, Eaten Alive. This is by Tobe Hooper, director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is one by Tobe Hooper that I'd not seen before, so I thought, I'll check it out. And it's basically a cross between Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with a killer crocodile. It does the whole Psycho thing of having the protagonist, who's a woman, go to a hotel that's a bit shabby in the middle of nowhere, and then the owner kills them. The protagonist has been killed, and the only person we're left with is the antagonist, who then becomes the protagonist because they're the only one left. And it does that whole thing not as well as Psycho. But once you get past that, the film starts to get more interesting, and I think the film gets better as it goes along. And it's quite a surreal film. The whole place is lit in this bright red light, it's very artificial. And it's this creepy little old hotel in the middle of the woods, and people just keep arriving. Throughout the night, it seems to be the night that everyone arrives. It's just like this really busy evening. And he's getting all flustered, like Leatherface, being all like, what's happening? Why are all these people coming to my house? And it's got that element to it. And it almost becomes slightly like a farce, but a really horrible, nasty farce. Here's the couple in this room. Don't go in that room. There's someone tied up to the bed, what's that shouting? That's just the little girl trapped under the house. Scariest part is probably when the villain is crawling after her under the house. And that's quite alarming. But the main thing is the crocodile. I mean, that's the one thing about this film that just makes it stand out, is that it's got a killer pet crocodile. And everyone who dies ends up just getting eaten by this crocodile. And it looks fake. It doesn't look like a real crocodile. But it's so weird. And finally, number 18, 18th of October, watched 28 days later. Pretty much an adrenaline-filled film. It's very fast-paced. As soon as there's a lull or a moment of calm, suddenly something comes around the corner. It's very much that type of film. Everything that happens in it is borrowed from George A. Romero films. because you've got, you know, the idea that the people turn out to be worse than the zombie military, you know, trying to take control and being all creepy and trying to breed, you know, that's like Day of the Dead. And even the idea that it's not a supernatural film, so technically they're not zombies because they're not dead, they're actually people who are infected with a virus. It's just like The Crazies, you know, and George A. Romero made The Crazies. I think that film was probably way ahead of its time. And yet, there is something original about this film, and it's something to do with the way in which it's executed. It feels very British, even though all of the Romero zombie films are American. There's something about this that's it's quite bleak, feeling of hopelessness and futility, but also a burdening sort of hope and a sort of a dark sort of humour that comes through as well. The military, I mean, the soldiers are horrible. And you know, they're all really laddie lads, and they're nasty people as well. They're not pleasant. And Christopher Eccleston plays this sort of captain or sergeant, and he's just horrible. He's a really cold reptilian sergeant. And you think, how can you get people this bad? They're so terrible. And then you almost end up feeling sorry for them by the end, just because the main character, the protagonist, Cillian Murphy's character, Jim, goes absolutely insane. Like, he becomes animalistically mad, like, with rage. And he ends up gouging someone's eyes out. You know, it's really quite intense. And he's the hero. He's the protagonist of the film. So yeah, it's a brutal film. I can see why it's loved. You know, it stands out from the crowd. It is the end of part 5. And I will see you for part 6, hopefully. Unless you don't watch it. But do watch it.